Welcome to the Thursday before Sunday, or in the Titans case, Monday preview show here on Titans Brawl, where we join together on a Thursday to preview the upcoming Titans game on the weekend, on the Sunday, or like I said in this case, Monday for the Titans as they travel to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. With me, I have Joe Lemming and Anna Lewis, Titans Brawl. And just jumping on here, we will preview the Titans as they gear up to take on the Denver Broncos Monday night in Denver. Start out, I wanted to push it over to Joe, Anna, whichever you guys want to jump in and give us a little brief history of matchup history between the Titans and the Broncos, which I'm sure has some nice matchups in the past. So maybe some brief history there, and maybe one of you guys can take a chance to preview last year's game, and then we can see what went wrong, and we can, take a look to see what is different compared, to the game last year and to the game that's coming up on Monday night. So
yeah, like you said, these two teams just faced off last season. But overall, the Titans lead the series record 23-18-1. Going back the last 4 seasons, these teams have traded wins and losses. So that means going into this year, go ahead and lock in the win. We're due for the win this year. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be a good matchup. But last year's memorable game really finished 16-0 with the Titans getting shut out in the Mile High City. But the biggest headline coming out of last year's game was that was the last time you saw Marcus Mariota start a game for the Tennessee Titans. So here we are moving into a game full with Ryan Tannehill in the newly rejuvenated Titans offense with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith. It's going to be a completely different looking game going into this season. And not only are the Titans the only one with a quarterback change, but the Broncos also have a quarterback change coming into this season as well, as they faced Joe Flacco last year, and this year they're coming in with second-year quarterback Drew Lock. So it's going to be a super exciting game. Hopefully, a little bit more scoring than last year's 16-0 game. But I really want to dive into the injury report. If you want to dive into that for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in there. So I think the most notable injury is going to be Von Miller. We're all very aware of that. And that makes a huge impact. I was telling Joe earlier, I was really looking forward to seeing Von and Jarrell Casey play together and see what that kind of – I didn't want to see it against us, but I was excited to see what that kind of pass rush was going to look like. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that. It looks like Von is out for the entire season, which is unfortunate. Bradley Chubb is questionable, so their pass rush is going to be pretty – I don't want to say weak and then jinx us, but they don't have their normal weapons and they're not at 100%. So it is going to be interesting from the defensive side of the ball. And then just got word today, who was the receiver that I'm going completely blank? Who was out?
Cortland Sutton, who actually led them in receiving yards in last year's game, is now also questionable with a shoulder injury coming into the game this year. And also is noted that Chubb didn't play last year when the Titans were in Denver either.
That's right. So lots of things are changing. So we will see, how those injuries do impact the game. They're going to impact the game ultimately. But I think it's still going to be a fun matchup. The Titans just have, I know Derek Roberson is still questionable this week with a possible knee injury, but it looks like it's just a minor strain. So I don't know that he'll be there for week 1. And then who am I missing? I mean, I haven't seen a lot of injury reports go out on the Titans. Y'all?
Injury report was released today, and then had Corey Davis, who was limited in practice with a little bit of a hammy issue. Vic Beasley, who was limited as well, who's still recovering from that knee injury that landed him on the NFI list a couple weeks ago when the Titans were still in camp. And I think the only other absence was Kenny Vaccaro, but his absence was not injury-related, so we should see him back on the practice field tomorrow in some shape or form. So I guess that's all really the questions on the injury report for the Titans. Now, with all that stuff out of the way, I want to get to the meaty stuff of the game, which I guess you could say is the interesting stuff regarding both sides of the ball for both teams. Regarding this, we can start out with the Titans defense versus the Broncos offense, which is a pretty intriguing matchup with some good old storylines on both sides of the ball there for those teams, particularly that Titans defense, due to the acquisition of Jadeveon Clowney this past weekend. So I'll hand it off to you guys. Give me your thoughts on this matchup between the Titans defense and the Broncos offense.
The biggest thing is going to be that this is going to be a completely different looking Broncos offense coming into this season, just because, again, facing Drew Lock, who started, I believe it was the last 5 games of the season, went 4-1 as the starter for the Broncos, with the only loss last year against the reigning Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs. In Lock's 5 games, he threw for 1,020 yards, 7 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. So he really looked like he was going to be that key piece to turn around that offense. But again, a Broncos team that you thought you were going to get a week ago has completely changed coming into game week, which is really unfortunate. You never want to see that for anybody, whether it's your opponent or not. But the biggest thing is that you're going to see Melvin Gordon split the backfield with Lindsey as well. That's one of their latest acquisitions. So you're going to really rely on them as your most veteran presence on offense. And you've got a completely different offensive coordinator coming in this year as well. So you really don't know what to expect, which is the scariest thing coming into week 1 against a really young team, is that you just don't know what to prepare for. But the Titans are loaded with veteran experience on the defensive side of the ball. Pass rush seems to be fixed now that we've got Jadeveon Clowney. And then you've got guys like Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson back deep with Kevin Byard and Vaccaro to really help lock down that offense. So I think unless they just come out and they game plan really well, I think the Titans should handle the Denver offense pretty easily. But I know, Anna, I know you love to talk about the defense. So I'll pass that back over to you.
I do. So if this is your first time hearing about me or seeing me on any social media, here's an intro to me. I am a former quality control defensive assistant coach at the collegiate level. Defense is my bread and butter, and pass rush is my passion through and through. So I am stoked. I was really excited to see Clowney make his way to national. I was really excited to see his interview today, where he sounded pretty enthusiastic to be a part of the team and a part of another Vrabel defensive scheme, which is awesome. But when you run down that depth chart, it is insane. Like, Jeffrey Simmons is going to make a splash this year, 100%. Daquan Jones is a proven leader, a proven run stuffer, which you need. Jack Crawford, I thought was interesting. Make a couple key plays at the end of last year, so I don't hate that. Clowney is exciting, but again, don't know what to expect from him. I think what we need to reference here is 2017 with Mike Vrabel. That was a Pro Bowl season. He was second team All-Pro that year. You should look at that as a frame of reference because it's going to be similar, and I think that's why he felt comfortable jumping in so late. Jayon Brown, Rashaan Evans, Harold Landry, exciting stuff. Like, those guys showed out and balled heavy last year. So I think you can see that again. Obviously, not all of those front seven can make plays the entire game, but just that, all of that together is exciting. And then our secondary was ranked 7th in the nation by several national analysts. So that's exciting stuff for the Titans defense, and Titans fans really need to be excited about that. And then when you look at the other side of the ball, I think the most notable person I'm looking at, obviously, Drew Lock is new, and we don't know how to play against him yet, especially with his new offensive coordinator. But when you look at having Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver, that's a little intimidating. Tonight we saw a rookie ball out with Kansas City. So I think you can expect to see that again, and I hope it's not too much. But I do think Jerry Jeudy will prove why, he was such a great player at Alabama. I think he's really going to make his mark here quickly with Denver. As far as anybody else, Courtland Sutton, like we were talking about earlier, is questionable. But if he does play, he will make an impact. I'm not entirely worried about Melvin Gordon from a rush standpoint. I think our guys have it locked down. I do think you'll see really high quality run stop defense against the Broncos. I do think you'll see a lot of plays made in the backfield. So I'm looking for it's going to be my type of game, and I'm really, really pumped for it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made on the Broncos offense with that new offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, which will be an interesting thing to watch, since the lack of off-season activities. and a lack of time to get that offensive system installed to such a young offense. It's full of talent, but anytime you have any sort of lack of time to install a new offense to a young offense, it's something else to watch for as well. I'm really interested to see how that Titans defense will handle Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley particularly, only because that those two haven't really been able to practice with the team for a while. Vic Beasley, like I said, he just got taken off the NFI list last week, and he still hasn't been able to practice a whole bunch. And Jadeveon Clowney just started practicing today or yesterday with the team. Today, yes, I think it was today. Get my days mixed up, but he just recently started practicing with the team as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Beasley and Clowney will be on some sort of pitch count. I'm more confident in Beasley in being on some sort of a pitch count, only because that he isn't in the same situation as Clowney. He hasn't played a year and he doesn't really know the system, like Clowney has when he was in Houston in 2017. So it will be interesting to see how those guys do if they're on the pitch count, all that jazz and stuff. For the rest of the defense, I'm interested to see in that nickel position where Christian Fulton getting his playing time, how much of playing time he'll get, considering the recent missed practice time that he had. I think he missed 6 straight practices, so that will be, monitor that. So it'll be a fun matchup between a good leadership-led, intriguing defense against a Broncos offense full of talent, full of intrigue. So switching gears on that, we can switch gears to the other side of the ball for both teams, where we can discuss this Titans offense versus this Broncos defense, which, if you're a Titans fan, you're familiar with the big story regarding the Broncos defense with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and also a familiar face in Jurrell Casey, who will be starting for that Broncos defense, and I'm sure he's unloading as much information as he can to that Broncos offense, that Broncos staff, to get whatever sort of competitive advantage that he can get and lead his team to a W. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on this matchup between the Titans offense and this Broncos defense, and also give me your thoughts on this Titans offense and Arthur Smith and how you might think he might approach this game due to the past success the Broncos had in stopping Derrick Henry in last year's game.
Yeah, you really just hit on it there. Last year, the Broncos had a lot of success really all around in the game, but especially in stopping Derrick Henry. That was one of his worst productions last season. I think the way Arthur Smith is going to combat that is that he's going to have a lot of play action, and a lot of play action. So, again, a lot of this really changes, especially with the potential of missing out Chubb and Miller. You go from having, newly acquired Jurrell Casey as being a benefactor from having those two guys on the defensive line with him to being the guy that has to set the tone now. He is the guy on their defensive line. He went from the guy that's going to benefit from double teams on Von Miller to the guy that's going to be getting double teams. So I think you're going to see a lot of push up front from that Titans offensive line, especially with those two major injuries. But also what's really going to be intriguing to me is the right side of the Titans offensive line. You've got rookie Isaiah Wilson, who's now on the COVID list for a second time. So you've got veteran Dennis Kelly stepping in at right tackle, which he did some last year with Jack Conklin out. So a lot of faith in him. And then you've still got Nate Davis at guard, who has been hit or miss. So without Von Miller coming at him, I'm going to be excited to see how they handle. But you're really going to see, I think, a lot of A.J. Brown. I think he's going to be the X factor coming out this year, and he's going to benefit from a lot of great play-action plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said, and it was like literally everything I was going to say. So I think you guys are absolutely correct on expecting a lot of RPO. You're going to see a lot of option offense run on Monday, because when you don't have that pressure coming from the line, which Jurrell Casey is going to make noise, but it's going to be a lot harder for him to make noise than it was before these injuries. That's what you do. That's how you break down a defense. And you're going to have the Broncos are going to have linebackers step up and some second string guys step up and really put pressure on that offensive line for us to break offensively, I think. I'm really excited to see what A.J. Brown is going to do on Monday. I think Khalif Raymond will probably have a few big plays. It does look like they've been working him out a lot. And I think Derrick Henry is going to go off too. I mean, that's always a safe assumption. But given his performance last year, they did figure it out somehow. I mean, I think he had 28 yards over 15 carries. It was insane. I think, also that game was a little stressful with the QB switch and all of the drama that came with that. So I know Jarrell Casey's going to go in those meeting rooms this week, and he probably already has been going, hey, here's what this means. Here's what they like to do. Like, if you see Taylor one line up like this is exactly the play they're going to run. And that sucks, but it happens every year. So I think a lot of people are putting a ton of emphasis on that. And I do think Jarrell Casey personally has an advantage, but if he's not able to get the people around him on board, they're not going to know that offense like he does. So I'm not 100% worried about that because, again, you see players move around the league every single year, and it doesn't seem to really phase matchups too much. I think this offense is too powerful, and it's going up against it's a weakened defense. So, I mean, we'll see, but I think the Titans will put up 28, 31, something like that. I know that's bold. That feels aggressive, but I'm putting it out there. That's what I'm putting out there for tonight. I'm gonna let Trey John go.
Those are interesting points that you both laid out across the board. I'm really interested to see how this Broncos defense functions after the departure of Todd Davis. It's a stud there in the middle of that defense, and their replacement, Josie Jewell. I don't know too much about him, but any time that you see a good player replace this close to the season, that's always something that you have to keep an eye on. In terms maybe of the passing game with the running backs and the tight ends, so that's another thing to keep an eye on. I'm really interested to see how this Titans offense starts out. Like Joe said, a lot of play action early on. I want to see, what those previous calls for more explosiveness in that offense from Arthur Smith will look like. Whether that's, the means of play action or, that's more different plays being drawn up, on the drawing board and finding different ways to somewhat modernize the functionings of this offense, and maybe somewhat stray away from the extremely run-heavy approach that this team has become comfortable with ever since John Robinson has came to Tennessee. So a lot of intriguing matchups on both sides of the ball. Will be real fun to see how those matchups play out. Moving on from that, I want to get you guys' opinion, or I guess you say a pick for an X factor for this game. One on defense, one on offense, one for the Titans. I guess two for the Titans. So we'll keep it short. Won't go for X factors on the Broncos. But give me an X factor for the Titans on both sides of the ball, and give me a reason why you think that player will be able to get off and put off a good performance on Monday night.
For the Titans on the offensive side of the ball, I kind of just threw that out there already. It's going to be A.J. Brown. I really think that the offense is going to run through him and Derrick Henry this year. Those are your two main pieces. And I think he wants to prove to everybody that last year wasn't a fluke and that he wants to come out of the gate, fast. So I'm going to be looking for a lot of A.J. Brown on offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you can really pick anybody. I mean, this is one of the most stacked Titans defenses you've seen in a very long time. But if I'm going to have to pick anybody, I'm going to pick the newcomer, Jadeveon Clowney. I think he's going to be an X factor. You're going to see him open up so many opportunities for Harold Landry, Rashawn Evans, Vic Beasley, Jeffrey Simmons. That's going to be your X factor. That's going to be the guy that all season long your defense is going to run through. So that's my pick on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, so for me, I thought you were going to take both of mine. I was like, oh, Joe. Offensive side of the ball, 100% A.J. Brown. If I had to pick a second, it'd be Derrick Henry, just because I think he's got the mentality that he's got to prove himself. And last time we went to Mile High, or were we out there or were we here? I can't even remember. But last time we played the Broncos, he didn't have a good game. So I could see him going into this and going, all right, 150, let's go. Like, he just seems like that kind of guy. So if I'm not going to pick A.J. Brown, I'll go Derrick Henry. And then for defensive side of the ball, Big Jeff from Mississippi. Like, that's my dude. Y'all see me hyping him up on social media all the time. I I just love his style of play. He reminds me, like, his aggression level reminds me of Javon Curse, who is my all-time favorite Titan. And I think you're going to see him, like his coach said the other day, he's getting violent. And I think that, I mean, it's like, oh, it's a little aggressive, but that's what you want. And that's like, coaches salivate over that because you can't teach that. That is innate. And I think he's going to kill it. So I think Big Jeff, I think he's going to this year with something to prove. So that's my pick for the defensive side of the ball.
A couple of nice options that you can pick out on the offensive side of the ball for an X factor. But if I had to decide on one, I really wouldn't decide on A.J. Brown or Derrick Henry. I think I would slide more towards Jonnu Smith or Corey Davis. Only because that A.J. Bouye is a really good man-to-man corner. And the last time, I believe it was in week 2 that A.J. Bouye matched up. Week 2, week 3, I believe that A.J. Bouye matched up against A.J. Brown. A.J. Bouye had A.J. Brown on straps, on locks, and it was a frustrating night for him on Thursday Night Football. Rainy day, bad loss, frustrating night for him. So I want to see how Corey Davis looks opposite, if A.J. Bouye does indeed lock up A.J. Brown. I want to see how Corey Davis reacts to those increased targets that he might receive during the game. On the defensive side of the ball, I really want to look towards Christian Fulton. Because that Broncos trio of wide receivers now is just full of talent, young talent. There's Cortland Sutton, there's Jerry Jeudy, and then there's KJ Hamler. And if you don't know who KJ Hamler is, pop on some previous Penn State tape, and you'll see that man as a weapon with a whole bunch of speed and be a matchup nightmare. So I want to see how Christian Fulton reacts first off in his first NFL game, the normal jitters that come with that, and then facing off against that speed demon in KJ Hamler, who has the ability to take the top off defense each and every time he steps on the field. So I guess those are our X factors. Moving on to the last part of the show. I want to get you guys' predictions. It's a tough prediction to make, only because that the Titans, first off, it's the first game of the season, no preseason work. And both teams have some young talent at important positions that they're relying on. So you got to take that into consideration. And also you have to take into consideration the insane record that Denver has, in the first 2 weeks of the season playing at home. Now, if I can find this stat, it's an insane stat. Every time it's brought up every single year, you can't help but be absolutely, surprised once you see that stat. If I could look this up, man. Give me a hot second.
Yeah, so while you do that, I'll jump in and give you guys did you get it? Or still looking up? Okay. So my prediction for Monday, and again, I feel like this is aggressive, but I'm going to say 28 or 31 Titans to 10 or 13 Denver. I think the Titans are going to do a lot of damage on the defense, and they might allow 1 touchdown, but I don't think they're going to allow more than that. So the only other points I see coming are field goals. And I think you're going to see Titans offense pop off. And if it doesn't, we just paid our quarterback a lot of money. So, this is not going to be good. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's really funny that you threw that 28 and 31 number out there, because that's the exact score that I was flirting with the Titans offense as well. If you would have asked me what my prediction would have been a week ago, I would have said that this was going to be a low-scoring slugfest. And now, I mean, the way I'm looking at it, with all the injuries piling up for Denver, again, I hate it, and I hate – I want every single team at their absolute best this year, but I'm looking at it now. I'm seeing a 31-14 victory for Tennessee. I just don't think the rookies on the Broncos offense are going to be able to get past the Titans D. And I think the Titans defense is going to lock down the inexperience of the Broncos offense. I think that second touchdown is going to come in garbage time when the game's already put away, but I'm calling 31-14 Titans.
Yeah, I'm not really on the same page with you guys as far as the prediction. I think it will be more of a closer game. the lack of off-season work, even though this Titans team is largely similar to last year's, I think any team would love to have the luxury of having off-season work and be able to, practice on the adjustments that you'll want to get prepared for the 2020 season. And in Arthur Smith's case, and in Mike Vrabel's case, both sides of the ball have some adjustments that they need to work out, or they needed to work out before the 2020 season even began. And so with me, I think I would slide more towards maybe a 23, 19, 20 sort of score like that. I think it'll be a real close game. The Broncos have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And even though the entire, complex nature of the 2020 offseason has impacted every single team across the league, especially the implementation of offenses and the implementation of young talent on both sides of the ball, I think this Broncos offense still, will be able to put up some points. But I still don't think, he'll end up in a W. I am concerned for the Broncos. I am concerned about those two tackles on the outside, Garrett Bowles, and I don't know who they're running at right tackle after Juwan James opted out. Those are two leaky, very leaky positions on the offensive side of the ball where it should give the Titans defense a real good opportunity for their pass rush to get going early on in the season and find a rhythm, maybe sustain it throughout the year. And, we'll see what go with that. And, also combine that with the fact that, like I was mentioning earlier, that the Broncos' insane record at home during the first 2 weeks of the season, the Broncos are a weird 49-6 at home in the first 2 weeks of the season since 1975. That's thousands of games, hundreds of games, thousands, millions of plays gone. 49-6 at home during the first 2 weeks of the season since 1975, which that's one of the weirdest stats I've ever heard of. I heard about that last year, but it's still ridiculous to this day. So I think it'll be a close game, regardless. So enough with that. That's the end of the show today. So it was a little bit of a rough draft, We're going to try to keep this going throughout the year. Thursday, get out Friday, get these Thursday before Sunday preview shoots out. And that way you can listen to our takes on the Titans games for the Sunday or that Monday, or even, that Thursday, whatever. So keep it locked here for Titans Brawl. For more content, follow Titans Brawl on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You'll find our content there, and you'll catch us again next Thursday.